So, hello, and here I am today for another webinar. This is the third webinar in which I'm going to be coaching someone. And I want to read something today that I was reading somewhere else recently. You know, there's a wonderful coach. His name is Jamie Smart. And I very much like the stuff that he talks about and does. And he's a big fan of a UK, I guess you would say, philosopher by the name of Sydney Banks. He's a person that has quite a big reputation, I think. And here's something that Sydney wrote recently. If you're searching for happiness, if you're searching for tranquility, if you're searching just to have a nice, peaceful, loving, understanding life, in actual fact, you're searching for your inner self. Whatever you may believe you've been searching for until now, what you've really been seeking is your inner self. What you've been looking for, you've been looking with. You are the light. And then I add, so I think it's important to realize where your experience comes from and who you really are. And part of what I mean by that is that we're definitely all much more than our thoughts and our beliefs. And if I say your inner self or your true self, or I could say your soul, we're all searching to get in deeper contact with our soul. That's the part of you that it's not affected by what happens yesterday or today or tomorrow, whether you got the big job or whether you lost a lover or whatever. It's the part of you that's just constant. And I believe it's also the part of you that's in charge of mediating your health and general welfare. And when we get in touch with that self, and as I always say, take a deep breath now, and I suggest you really do. When you get in touch with that deeper self, that core self, your soul, you realize that you really do have the capacity to create the life that you want. So that when I'm sitting here, like I just had a big deal with the immigration. I'm in Chiang Rai, Thailand, and I had a big deal with the immigration 2 days ago. And I won't go into the details, but wow, I found myself so freaked out, and they said I was going to have to pay like an $800 fine. And it turned out that somehow I went to the immigration border and the person stamped me out of the country without charging me the $800, which was a true blessing. Kind of almost as if my life was falling apart, you know? And so I had to, took me about an hour and a half to drive up to the border because I was forced to leave the country. Thank God I'm close to the border. I was forced to leave the country and come back in again. And yeah, like I'm saying, it was as if my whole life was falling apart, and it's not. So that's what I mean about you're not that voice inside your head, as much as it often seems to us that we are the voice inside of our head. So in order to get in touch with that deeper part of yourself, in the Seishindo principles, what we need to do is slow down, breathe more, and start to feel what's underneath whatever it is you're thinking. And your thinking is going to lead to your feeling. And I've read that in scientific research, they've discovered that the average person is not aware of 95% of their internal dialogue. So I'm here thinking like, in regard to this immigration issue, that becomes my reality. I was quite nervous. And in actuality, the worst thing that was going to happen, I was going to have to pay an $800 fine. But as it turned out, again, somehow the immigration person, luckily for me, didn't notice that I was on what they call overstay. And he just stamped me out of the country, and I came back in again. And when I got back into Thailand, I was only out for about a half hour. When I got back into Thailand, oh, my life is okay. But I believe that our soul or our inner self always knows that our life is okay. Anyway, what we wind up doing is we grow up with, and we learn a lot from our parents, a lot of it which is not actually the greatest learning, because all of us, there's this important difference between objective reality and subjective reality. So there's objective reality, and most of our life doesn't seem to really revolve around that. Like if I look out now at my window, and I see a person walking around near the back of my truck, I would call that objective reality. But when I'm looking at that person, I'm always immediately adding information like, oh, it's a Thai person. Oh, it's a man. I might think, oh, it's an overweight or underweight man or whatever. It's rare that we look and just notice. We're always somehow adding information. And that added information is subjective reality. And we'll do well to understand that really everything we experience is subjective reality. But for us each individually, it seems like objective reality. That person is good looking, intelligent, whatever I say, that's subjective reality. And no two people are ever going to have the same subjective reality. And that's sometimes the difficulty or challenges we have when we're in a relationship with someone, whether it's at work or whether it's a personal relationship. Sometimes we just can't figure out why the way they're interacting in the world is so different than we expect. And that's always an interesting thing about when you're first living in what for you is a new country. You notice that people have certain, let's say, habits, ways of doing things that are different than you've ever done them, and can be easy to get judgmental about that. And anyway, you're kind of wondering, why is it like Thai people, to a fair extent, eat with their hands. They will also almost always have a fork and a spoon, but they'll eat, certainly the sticky rice, they eat with their hands and they roll it into a ball while they're maybe chewing a piece of meat that they have, and then they eat it. That's fine for me, but we certainly didn't grow up doing that in the United States. And in fact, with a dad like mine, if I would have ever touched my food with my hands, he might have reached over and given me a little slap and tell me to use the proper manners. So we start to realize that, wow, these people have a different model of the world than us. And I've been learning Thai. I've been actually studying quite regularly, about 5 or 6 times a week for an hour. And my Thai is, it's getting passable. And you notice simply from the language that we each speak, each country, for instance, you'll start to notice how they have a different way of looking at the world. So for instance, in the Thai language, you can't really tell whether they're talking about the past or the present or the future, which is a pretty interesting situation to be in. And you have to pick up what time frame they're in based on the rest of what they're saying. So if I can read basic Thai, it says, I go to store, but that could also be I went to the store. So it can be when you're interacting with a Thai person or when two Thai people are interacting with each other, they need to be careful that they're understanding what time frame the person is talking in. So that's just one of a number of examples. And supposedly most, if not all, of the languages spoken by American Indians also doesn't have a time frame like we have in English. So Audrey, any chance that you'd like to have a little coaching today? And there you are. Good. Okay. So the way it works here is when I'm talking, I show up as the main person. And if you just say hello again.
Yeah, I know. I use Zoom too. Yeah. So.
Okay. And then you show up again. Okay, good. So let's tell us exactly and simply what it is you'd like some help with.
So what I would like to do is whatever I'm doing, get myself out of my own way so I could find my soulmate and have a relationship.
Okay, good. Now, let's take out a part that's a little bit negatively oriented, which is get out of my own way.
Right.
So make another statement, please, about wanting to find a relationship.
I would like to be able to find a relationship where I feel very trusting and comfortable and happy for the next portion of my life to have a relationship.
Okay, good, good. And even if we're already married or with someone long-term, I think it's a goal that everybody has in mind, correct?
Yeah.
So I think what's one of the things that's important about being a mammal, and this has actually been shown scientifically, that mammals need nurturing. And one of the ways they discovered this is when the what used to be called the Iron Curtain broke down, and lots of kids got stuck in homes for children, and they didn't have parents, of course, in these homes, and the homes were overfilled, and the kids had very little contact with the people that were working in the facility, and a lot of those kids grew up with pretty amazing emotional problems. So as mammals, we all need some form of nurturing. Okay, so let's make believe you've already accomplished your goal, Audrey.
Okay.
What would you basically say?
So when I have this goal, so I'm in the goal, I have a relationship partner, and I feel like my life is complete. I have something I've been searching for a long time. I feel support, and yet I could be myself. So we have our own space, and yet we have our together space. Trust is really big. Communication is wonderful. Have someone to do things with, enjoy, the simple things, going for a walk, the more exciting things, going on big trips, and, just having somebody to share with and totally enjoy and respect that person too for their intelligence. And, so we each have our own intelligence, but respect that person for who they are.
Okay, good. So you say where I can really be myself. And what does that mean?
I think to trust that, like even if you have a disagreement or an argument, the other person knows how to listen enough so that they're looking for the positive, like I would do. Like that same thing back, like show, I'm usually totally fine, but there's times when I get anxious like everybody else. So like being able to say it and have them be supportive and accept me and like me anyway. Okay.
Okay, so, but I didn't still quite get the part about truly being yourself.
Okay. So truly being myself means I don't particularly like cooking or cleaning. And so like, not that a man in my life would require that, but there's this feeling in myself that I would have to accept myself as not doing the female things. You know, I'd rather go mow the lawn any day than cook. So that, yes.
Okay, good. So then I heard an interesting piece, which is you saying, so I could accept myself.
Right.
And what's that about?
So that's about like, I've been married and now I'm divorced for a long time, and I'm very happy single, and my ex-husband was a really great guy. He never required anything of me, but I did feel a little bit guilty if I didn't do the wifely thing, like cooking, cleaning. I worked and I liked working. And he was totally fine with it, but I felt like I should be doing, you know, the things that might be expected of a wife.
Okay, so like I think we all are to an extent. I think I call it this way, I say it this way, you're playing with a certain rule book that doesn't really fit you, sounds like.
It's my mother's rule book, of course. Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's your mother's rule book, and you find that playing with your mother's rule book doesn't do all that well in your relationship. Might have been okay in your mom's life, but it's not really all that good in your life.
Right.
And yet you have continued to do it because
I didn't. I'm single, so like I don't do anything I don't want to. You know, like it's easy. I have nobody to be guilty about if I don't want to cook. If I feel like cooking, I cook. If I don't feel like cooking, I don't cook. So it's easier when I'm single. When I'm in a relationship, even if the other person's not expecting it, I almost feel bad that I don't do those things.
yes. So this is where most of us get stuck in some way. Is I hear you saying two things that sort of compete with each other. One is I want to have a high quality personal relationship. The other statement is I actually prefer being on my own.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the problem is like there's a part of me that it's very satisfying being on my own. There's no arguments. There's I do whatever I want to do. I travel when I want to travel. But I really would like to have someone who I could feel so comfortable with as I do by myself. I don't know how to say that. The same kind of feeling of comfort
Okay.
in a relationship.
Okay, and just the way I'm hearing it, which is just the way I'm hearing it, is if you weren't somehow judging yourself and the fact that you're not following your mother's rule book, you'd most likely have a better, easier relationship.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, take a deep breath, please. So what would you need to do, Audrey, to follow your own rule book?
I would need to stop feeling guilty for not following my mother's rule book or the rule book I think others have, even when they don't.
So maybe the first step, possibly, could be creating your own rule book.
So the same rule book I use as a single, if I knew how to keep that as in a relationship, I'd be in total great shape.
Okay, good. So what is the rule book you follow as an individual?
I work hard, I play hard, I do what I want to do when I want to do it. If I want to rest, I rest. If I want to work, I work. If I want to read, I read. If I want to go on a trip, I just set it up and go. So I don't know. It's just, there's no guilt. There's no guilt. There's just whatever it doesn't affect another. It just affects me.
No guilt. So what do you think you'd need to do in order to be in a relationship? And I'm going to state it in the negative while not feeling guilt?
So what would I need to do? Well, that's a pretty deep-seated kind of thing. That's why logically, I could tell myself it's totally all right, you know, like, and I know this logically because in my marriage, he cooked. I did the outside stuff, you know, the fix things, and I did the lawn. So but I still felt somewhat guilty, like I should be. So the shoulds, I'd have to get rid of the shoulds.
Okay. And what if you said, for instance, just starting out, what if you said, I'm in a relationship and I'm being myself at the same time?
I'm in a relationship and being myself at the same time. Well, that feels really good. Yeah.
So, I mean, the thing is, like most of my life, I always enjoyed traveling with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And then recently, in the last few years, I've taken some trips on my own and I've quite enjoyed myself. But of course, the difference being is when I'm in any kind of relationship, whether it's a friend, someone like Tony or Joel, I don't just say, hey, Tony, we're going away 2 weeks from now. And in fact, we're going to Morocco. Because Tony might say, gee, you want to ask my opinion? You want to see if I'm free in 2 weeks? Do you want to see if Morocco is a country that I want to go to? So I think, of course, we don't do things just on our own or just on my thinking and power when I'm in a relationship. So how is that for you?
Well, I kind of loved the idea, well, not what you said, but in kind of what you said. I would love somebody who I'm dating to say to me, hey, you want to go to Morocco in 2 weeks? Yeah, I love it that you planned a trip in 2 weeks and you even know the flights and I don't have to do any of that. That would be like, woohoo, yay. But I wouldn't want the person to say, this is what we're doing and you don't have a choice. Yeah.
Yes. And so in being in relationship, like I have a 24-year-old daughter. She was supposed to be coming to the webinar for the first time today. She doesn't seem to have shown up. My daughter tends to send me a line message, and because we travel at least once a year, and she'll send me a line message and say, for instance, this just happened last month. She wanted to go to Brazil. And I said, you know, Brazil is literally halfway around the world to me. I checked it out on some sites. My entire travel time, including being in airports, was going to be 35 hours from the time when I left my house and all those time zones. I said, let's go to some place that's more in the middle for the both of us. And she wasn't into doing that. She really wanted to go to Brazil. So she went to Brazil without me, which was fine for me. And she kept on saying she really wanted me to come, but anyway, she wasn't willing to switch to a location that wouldn't be so arduous for me to get to. So you would love it if your partner said, let's go to Morocco in 2 weeks. But if you weren't actually interested in going to Morocco, or if you actually very much wanted to go to another country, then you might have a different feeling, huh? Yes?
Right. Usually I'm the planner, so usually people are happy to go wherever I want to go. That's why it felt so exciting to have somebody say, let's go. But yeah, I like that. What you're saying is I would like the give and take.
Yes.
Like when you care about somebody and you really want to be with them, they want to go to Morocco, you want to go to Paris, and maybe you find somewhere that's neither one of those, but something that you both like. Yeah. So that's a good.
You wind up in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah, that would be funny. Yeah.
So, in fact, you maybe begin to realize that the destination is not the most important part of the trip, huh?
That's exactly the point. Right.
Yes, good. So we start to put the pieces together, and you're able to start what we call in NLP future pacing. I'm in a relationship. We both care about each other. We both care about what's important to the other person. And we do a really good job of interacting with each other.
That's well said. Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Okay, good. So these things that I'm saying, which are reasonably well conceived, I would suggest is what you want to start practicing saying to yourself.
Did you say that? Do you remember the last part that you just said? So I'm in a relationship, being myself, and at the same time, we both care about what's important to each other. And then there was another piece.
Something
Or
about
something like it.
And we're getting along really well.
Okay, and we communicate well. Okay,
Yes.
okay, I got it. Yeah, I could say that, and I love that. That sounds really good.
And then we're still with the issue of deciding what rule book to use. And here's something that I found it, of course, in my own life, but I see it all the time with my clients, is someone gets told something by their parents. Let's say, like my father was a pretty tough character to be around. And he said, "You're no good and you'll never be any good." He actually used stronger language than that, but I'll say it like that. And then after he said that to me a number of times, like from when I'm quite a young child, so that judgment was coming externally into me. And then I found myself sitting around saying to myself, the words started to come out of my mouth, being, "My name is Charlie. Charlie, you're no good and you'll never be any good."
Right.
And it was like, whoa, where did that come from?
Right.
It originally came from my father, but I took it in and somehow believed it, and it became my language, my beliefs.
Right. Right.
So it's kind of a confusion of identities. Somehow my father and I were merging in not the healthiest manner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you took on a number of your mother's beliefs, and even though they no longer suit you or maybe never suited you,
Mm-hmm.
you made her words your words.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Well,
I'm not even sure I know the words, but I think the message I got. Yeah.
yes, the message you got. And therefore, you're really wanting to be different, but this message is still in your head. Because if it wasn't,
Right.
you'd be feeling fine about not doing the cooking and such.
Yeah, probably will. Yeah, it's really hard to imagine that because yeah, that is the old-fashioned way of being as a woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be hard to imagine. It's been proving hard for you because you haven't quite honed in on it all yet.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me in short form how you want to be as a woman in a intimate relationship.
So I want to be in a relationship where I'm myself, enjoying, trusting that the person who is with me enjoys my company enough so I could just be who I am, and we work it out and we respect and enjoy each other for who we are.
Isn't that quite possible?
Yeah, that's very possible. Yes.
Yeah. Good. So make this statement as if it's already happening, please. I'm in
a relation. I get it. I'm in a relationship, being myself, and at the same time, my partner just loves the way I am, and I'm so happy with the way he is, and we communicate well, and we enjoy being together.
Yeah.
And we communicate extremely well.
Great. And so I think it's like this. Let me try it on anyway. I'm in a relationship, I'm being myself, and at the same time, I'm responsive to my partner, and we're doing great.
Okay, so can I bring up a problem?
Are there some problems? Okay, go ahead.
So what happens, and I know you're just doing a demo, and I don't want to take up too much time, but so like in my marriage, that's exactly how it was. We were responsive to each other. He did the cooking, I did the other stuff, the male stuff, quote unquote, and he was totally fine with that. But at the same time, I didn't feel fulfilled because even with all that great communication, liking each other, I felt like it was an apple and an orange. We were the wrong people together. They don't make good, they don't mix that well. So like, how do I make sure? So maybe there's another belief going on that I can't find that person who I mix with.
Good. So what happens is we're looking to get to what in NLP is called the deep structure, and the deep structure comes before language. The deep structure is our kind of core beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in a relationship, enjoying my partner, enjoying being myself, looking after the needs of my partner, and my partner looks out after my needs as well. Now, of course, that's assuming that that other person is actually well suited for me, and I'm well suited for them.
That's the piece I was missing. Okay.
So, I mean, as we know now, as the whole world gets more and more quote unquote modern, in most industrialized societies, if not all, the divorce rate is 50% and higher, right? So
yeah,
finding the right partner is a task that most of us don't do all that well at. And yet the thing is, like, so for instance, I'm single now, and I was married for 20 years to a very lovely Japanese woman. And again, I have my 24-year-old daughter who's a wonderful person. But the marriage kind of ground to a halt little by little. But that doesn't lead me feeling like I couldn't find someone else or that something's wrong with me or whatever. It's just that's the way life is to an extent.
Yeah, which I guess I don't want to make the mistake again.
You know what? You might make that mistake again. But if you want to be in the game, you have to be open to making mistakes, because mistakes are really the only way we learn.
You're absolutely right. I'm actually not afraid of making a mistake because I think that I have two great kids out of that marriage. So like, it wasn't really a mistake in that way.
Yes. Yeah. Good. Excellent. I mean, like in my situation, I go to Japan once or twice a year. I stay in my ex-wife's house. My daughter has still been living there. We get along fine. I go out to dinner with my ex-wife. We have good conversations. I have no negative commentary on her. And I also don't have any negative commentary on myself for no longer being with her. Life happens. And I think we don't really understand how our life is meant to happen, particularly when we're younger. It just takes place. Right. You know, like what I see now that I'm getting much older, now that I'm 70, it's so fascinating to see young people. What's the expression they use these days? Hook up.
Hook up, yeah.
And they're out, maybe, like I see a lot of tourists here, and they meet someone and they're here for 2 weeks and they're having sex with this person. They're enjoying themselves. And then one's going back to Canada and one's going back to Spain.
Right.
They're certainly not saying, oh, let's not hook up because we're not going to spend the rest of our life together. They're just enjoying each other's company.
Yeah. It's a different world today for the younger people. Yes.
So better or worse, I'm not certain, but it's a different world.
Yeah.
So how do you feel right now, Audrey, in as far as accepting yourself as who you are?
You hit the mark when you said the last piece, and we're well suited for each other. That kind of like cleaned things up a lot.
Yes.
That was like the last missing piece.
Okay.
I could be myself. We care about each other. We care about each other's needs, and we're well suited for each other.
Yes. Yes. And when we're quite younger, we're not at all sure what that even is or what it means.
Right. I was very young when I got married. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So that, there's an interesting statistic about super wealthy people is that most super wealthy, which means on some level they're going to be entrepreneurial. They're not going to be working for a big company to start out, or not in the long term, is that they often go bankrupt 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
I've heard that, yeah.
Before they finally either hit the right idea or manage the right idea correctly so it flourishes. Okay, so they don't sit there and say, I had this failed business. I used to really trust in myself, and now, I don't know, I'm thinking about going to work at Walmart's or something.
Right.
They don't lose faith in themselves.
Right.
And I'm hoping that you certainly haven't lost faith in yourself.
No, I haven't. And I 3 years ago, I would have said, I don't even want a relationship. Now I really do. So that's why I like that last piece really hit home. And we're well suited for each other. I mean, that was the piece I didn't even know to say it.
Okay. So make a statement now about this future that you're pursuing as if it was already accomplished.
So I'm in a relationship. We have lots of fun together. We care about each other's needs. We communicate well, even when we disagree. And we totally want to support each other. And we're well suited for each other in the ways that make it important to have a really fun life.
Okay, good. So what I would suggest is, after the call is over, you might write the entire statement down first.
I did write it down, yeah.
And then make it a bit simpler.
Okay.
Kind of like what you could call a mantra.
Okay.
And, in training athletes, and I've done a little bit of that myself, what they do is they imagine themselves, let's say basketball is a game I like to look at because I think the players are amazing these days.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say there's something like when Shaquille O'Neal was playing, he was a phenomenal center, but he was one of the worst foul shooters in the history of the NBA. So I don't know what training exactly he had, but if I had been training him, and I'm sure he did this, he would be sitting there imagining himself making field goals, foul shots in an important game. And why do they do that? They're not trying to kid themselves or lie to themselves or whatever, like, oh, I'm a great foul shooter. When they're imagining it, their neurons are actually firing off as if they were actually doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's how we get ourselves, how we bring ourselves into the future, where the future is now the present. Because we've imagined it, again, not in some way of trying to trick ourselves. We've imagined it until such a time that it's actually true.
Mm-hmm.
So when you really edit the statement to where there's not any extra words, you're able to say it quite simply from memory. Again, I suggest we take a deep breath. Maybe you're even imagining a certain kind of guy, or some people actually say, yeah, he's 6'2", he's got black hair, whatever. You're imagining yourself in this relationship. We're really comfortable with each other. We really respect each other. We're really well suited for each other. And it's a great relationship.
I got it.
How do you feel hearing that?
I really like that. And I think I condensed it down even a little bit more into the well suited for each other for fulfilling life together. I think that fulfilling life together has the whole answer.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
So how do you feel right now then in regard to this pursuit of finding a mate compared to?
I love it. It feels different. I am being myself. I'm in a relationship which is suited for each other and for fulfilling life together. That fulfilling life together now makes it feel very comfortable.
So you feel more confident that you'll be able to accomplish that?
Yeah, those extra words really helped. Well, whatever you did, your magic helped. Yes.
Now, well, what we're looking to do most of the time, Audrey, is to simplify. To simplify, the simplify, the simplify. And like sometimes when I coach business people and they say, I've got this really great idea that I want to somehow start a business with, and I have them explain it to me, sometimes I can't really understand what they're wanting to do. And then simply by working with them to make sure that when they say whatever their product or service is, that I quickly get it and perhaps say, yeah, and if I was in that kind of business, I'd definitely buy your product or service. So it's cleaning up. We have all of this thinking like this, and then we need to hone it down till we have like a little nugget of wisdom.
Well, that was really excellent. And I will tell you that it's nice because I'm a hypnotherapist and a neuro-linguistic programmer. And it's really nice to have somebody work with me and help me get my statement down on an issue that was, really difficult for me.
Okay, good. Okay, so I think we've done a good job together. So
Yes.
Thank you for being a good coachee or client. And let's just tune in. Oh, we got another person here. His name is Mayer, or I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Joel, Tony, Mayer, I don't know how long you've been here for, Mayer. Any
Hello.
comments about, hello?
Yes.
Hello. So I'm just wanting comments from anybody, Joel, Tony, Mayer, if they were here early enough. What did you pick up from the coaching? What did you get from it?
I like how you spoke about the piece where you imagine it in your mind and then, manifesting piece.
Okay, good. Joel or Tony? Gonna be shy? Go ahead, Joel.
I just like how you just kept it gentle and simple and kept on bringing Audrey back to, more and more to hone the message into the feeling she wanted. That was a great piece of coaching.
Okay, so yeah, honing the message, staying positive, being gentle. Particularly, we need to be gentle with ourselves because most of us have some negative judgments about ourselves, and we're somehow putting that into our statement. So honing the message, staying gentle, staying positively oriented. So in other words, instead of saying, I want to lose weight, which means that I'm overweight, and if I say I want to lose weight 1,000 times, I'm telling myself 1,000 times that I'm overweight, and therefore I'm not much more likely to remain overweight in the future. So when I say I'm slim and trim and feeling great, there could be a part of me that comes out and says, who the hell are you kidding? And I go, okay, let's keep it gentle and kind. I'm stating my desire, and I want to future pace myself into that desire by saying I'm slim and healthy and feeling great. And then I can start to think, I can go back from the success and say, how did you actually get there, Charlie? How did you lose that weight?
Well, sometimes, Charlie, I start with I'm beginning to, or I'm learning to become. So that allows me for that transition period.
Yeah, good. That's, yes, also a good idea. Also a good idea. No information from our friend Tony today?
I was too busy doing the production in the back. I think what you tend to do is to find maybe some incongruencies, or, as you were saying, you know, I would guess it'd be like hidden negatives. It sounds positive, but it's really negative. As you say, I want to lose weight, which implies, you know, I'm overweight.
Yes.
And you continue to look at the meta message and peel back the onion slowly until you come to a good mission statement.
Yeah.
For example, like, which, you know, some companies, since I'm a kind of corporate person, will have these very altruistic, big, you know, we value our employees, and we are here for the goodness of the earth, you know, right? Or something very large. And that's kind of where we all start at. And nobody's actually sat down with Charlie and sat down and say, well, what do you really mean by that? And get down into the nitty gritty. So that's what I've learned from there. I do have a question later, but I'll say that when you're ready for questions.
I feel ready for questions now.
Okay, so you said something in the beginning about the soul knows that everything's okay, so something like that in the beginning, right?
Yes.
So where are the negative emotions coming from? Is that an anti-soul, or what is that?
Okay, first of all,
I like that question.
Go ahead, Joel.
I just said I like that question.
First of all, I would say, you know, and of course this is part of Aikido thinking, that when we're oppositional, we tend to have difficulties with ourselves and other people. And one of the starting ways, and I think Ericksonian hypnosis would say this also, is to add at least a third alternative. So when I hear about negative emotions, that what I hear is, just because of my experience, I hear, oh, there's positive emotions and there's negative emotions. And I choose to not think of it that way. I think that there are some emotions that are solution-oriented, life-affirming, and there's some that aren't. And I could be quibbling, but to me, it's an important quibble. And then if I restate your question and you tell me if this kind of fits in or not, Tony, is, so why do we seem to think or do some certain things that aren't really in our best self-interest?
Especially when the soul is saying everything's okay.
Okay, good. Because, well, as I like to say, you know, and you Americans, and I playfully say you Americans might have trouble believing this, but first of all, your soul doesn't speak English. And in fact, it doesn't speak any verbal language, because your soul is with you from the beginning. You know, and for instance, like this couple right down 100 feet away from where I live, they have 2 young daughters, and the youngest one is about a year old, and she can't speak yet. So in Thailand, when you have a child, you train it to, this is called a why. You train the child to do this. Whenever they meet anybody, it's a sign of respect. And you see when the kids are young enough, they do it like this. They do it like, I mean, they don't have the coordination. They're not really sure why they're doing this. Just mommy always says to do it. The soul comes before language. And also, if you think about your ability to digest food, to maintain a healthy blood pressure and such, we're not able to say to ourselves, hey, lower my blood pressure, damn it. You know, and in fact, if we say, damn it, it's liable to even go up a little higher. Okay, so our soul doesn't speak English or Japanese or Thai. It's prior to language. And our soul, therefore, can easily be kind of overshouted. And we can choose to not pay attention to our soul.
Okay, so the not so constructive emotions, the not solution oriented, is that still coming from the soul? Because the soul, as you were saying, is everything's okay. So where is that coming? Where are those not so productive, non-verbal feeling coming from?
Your rational mind.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or you might more generally say your thoughts.
Yeah. So if I look in the mirror right now and go, I don't know, you're an ugly fat old guy or something like that, it's not like I've got this such an incredible soul that it doesn't even allow me that internal dialogue.
Right. And I correct you, by the way, you're not fat, but I could have chosen any three of those. But let's go back to your example, Charlie, when you were saying you came back and you said everything's okay. So where was that, oh my gosh, what am I going to do for the border, et cetera, et cetera? Because I catch myself in those, that quite often, ruminating about the worst case scenario. That's all from your logical, rational mind then.
Yeah, I mean, to say it, I say this more, I would say aesthetically than, excuse me, rather than kind of right and wrong or scientifically proven, is, yeah, we have this rational mind. I'm very happy that I have a rational mind. If I didn't have a rational mind, I wouldn't be able to be here on this webinar talking to you guys today. I learned most of what I believe to be true, I learned it as a child. So again, my father often telling me I was no good, I found there was a period in my life that I was actually trying to prove him correct. So we learn all these things as children, a lot of which isn't well-conceived information and certainly not quote unquote true information. And then we just get this habit pattern. Like for myself, I work 6 days a week, often 60 hours a week for 30, 40 years. And even though I'm at least half retired now, my nervous system doesn't know I'm half retired. And because when I had all these different businesses I had great ideas, but I was never all that good at implementing my ideas. I mean, I had some successful companies, but I really had to run pretty fast sometimes to keep things going. So I have this habit pattern of, oh shit. So that when something happens to give me the opportunity to feel that, oh shit, oof, I'm right back there as if I was running my importing business in New York City 35 years ago. So we get patterned. Our soul is here, meanwhile taking care of our blood pressure, our digestion, whatever. And of course, if I go out and get drunk tonight, my soul's not going to, like, I can't get my hand to go to the glass anymore because my soul is stopping it. And then I'll wake up tomorrow with a hangover and I'll feel terrible. So we need to listen to our soul. The relationship that we're talking about, some with Audrey, is very similar to the relationship we need to have with our soul. And what is our soul really telling us? And one of the messages I get right now is everything's okay. Everything's okay. And when I had my one most successful trading business, I didn't even have time during the day to take lunch. I used to have someone go out and get me a sandwich. I'd eat lunch at my desk while I'm doing something else. And there was a problem every single day. And therefore, when I sold that business, and I sold it successfully, I was still in this habit pattern of waiting and expecting for what are today's problems going to be. And I find that I'm still weaning myself off that a number of years later. So we have a soul. It's organizing all of the basic life-sustaining activities that we need to perform every day to stay alive. And we can override that soul very easily by either speaking to ourselves negatively and or just having a habit pattern that, I saw a very lovely video about Robin Williams recently called Come Inside My Mind. And there was a stage, I don't know exactly when, 10 years ago or something, 12 years ago, he went to a doctor for a stress test. And he said, I was only on the treadmill for like 10 seconds. And the doctor said, stop, that's enough before you die. Because Robin had worked himself up into a frenzy. So we need to, I would like to say, I'm in a great relationship with my inner self. My inner self cares for me. I care for my inner self. I enjoy being with my inner self. And life is going great. Very similar. I'm kind of parroting to some extent what I had Audrey saying. And then Audrey can make those statements and then get into an argument with someone, and I can make those statements about me and my soul and quickly getting into doing something not all that good for me. That's the space we're always in as human beings. So I believe the more you can identify with your soul, the more that you can identify, I would say for Tony, that you're a wonderful, kind, caring, competent person. Doesn't matter what company you're working in, what your boss says in a moment of anger. You're a kind, caring, intelligent, highly competent person.
Thank you, and not fat, right?
And unfat.
Right.
And unfat. And so if you make that statement to yourself regularly, particularly, for instance, if you have a boss that's a bit caustic, I'm kind, I'm caring, I'm highly competent, and I'm doing a good job. So that when someone comes along and says, hey, idiot, you don't quickly say, are you talking to me? And you can realize that that person could have a better model of the world. And it's important that you don't allow someone else's anger or lack of confidence to create anger or lack of confidence in yourself. Okay, here we are for today. I want to thank everybody who showed up, and particularly Audrey for being a good coachee.
Thank you for coaching.
Yes, and she got some results that are pleasing to her. And yes, Audrey, particularly as a coach or being in the helping profession, we have to be really clear that that doesn't mean we no longer need help or coaching. I've had people in the past say, well, if you're, because I'm also a trained hypnotist and such, and well, if you're a trained hypnotist and it's not, how come you still got some problems in your life? It's because we need something to work on. There isn't anybody in my mind that's sitting back saying, oh, my whole life is great, it's just wonderful, and Yeah, I think I'll just sit here and enjoy it for a little bit longer. We all have some grist in our mill that we need to work with. So, Mayor, is that how you say your name?
Yes.
Okay, good. I didn't want to mispronounce your name. So thank you also for coming today. We'll have another webinar in about a month's time. Usually I have one a month, unless, like, I didn't have one between Christmas and New Year's because people are just way too busy. So please come back. If you've enjoyed yourself or felt like you learned something, please pass on some information to other people in your network. And that will be it today.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.